Welcome to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. We are so excited to be with you out there, listeners, and we're super excited to have a guest with us today, aren't we, Laurel?
We are.
I know. Our guest has been here before, so we're so excited to welcome back Pixie Hamilton. Hi, Pixie. How are you?
Hi, Laurel. Hi, Laurel.
Hi, Pixie.
We're so glad you're here. All right, so Pixie and I actually, quite a while ago, I want to say months ago now, Pixie, that we were having a conversation and the topic of loyalty came up. And I was like, oh, Pixie, I want you to come on the podcast and talk about loyalty with us. And she said, okay. So here she is, and we're super excited. So our topic is, we hadn't really ironed out the title, but I'm going to throw a title out there now. And it's going to be when loyalty becomes a problem. So I feel like this is really cool because we did some podcasting that's already this season, and we talked about commitment. And so we're talking about, well, Pixie, I want you to share the term that you used, because I love the term that you used. Okay. You throw that term in there and give us a little background on that one.
With loyalty?
Yeah, over.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think I would say one thing first, and that is that, so loyalty is a huge topic, right? And it's thrown around everywhere we go. And our society, holds it up in real high esteem. And if you're called loyal, you are, immediately held up as respected and valued. And so we all strive in this society, especially in this Western culture, to be, loyal. And everywhere I went after Laurel and I first introduced this idea, it's like everywhere I went, businesses, banks, our mission is loyalty. Our mission is this. We're loyal, above all loyal. And it's just like flashing neon. But I think we can all agree. I think 100% of us would say that we value loyalty, but I think that it can go wrong in the sense of if it's kind of directed by misaligned intentions. And what I mean, at least for me, which manifested in my life for decades, is being a recovering codependent. Loyalty tends to get overdone. And if you're ever talking with other codependents, you'll know that codependency and overzealous loyalty kind of go hand in hand, to the point where you start to lose yourself in your overzealous functioning and loyalty to others.
Yeah, or you start to define yourself by that commitment, so to speak, or by that ideal of living up to being loyal to whatever that is, right? And what that means, and kind of projecting a lot of, I don't know, behaviors or ways that you're supposed to think or show up according to that belief, right? In that loyalty. And that's, I think, and I think this is a great topic. I love this topic. I'm really glad that we are talking about it today, because for me, I was really, as I was reflecting on us coming together today, was thinking about, a lot of the tensions, the general tensions of the world today, and how a lot of them are formed around loyalties that are overzealous, right? And so we aren't even able to communicate necessarily on things that we don't agree on, because we feel such strong feelings about loyalty to X, Y, or Z, right? And that's created, a culture around, I don't know, really difficult communication, I think. Where are you on that, Laurel, Pixie? I feel like, yeah.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about what happens is that we are loyal to a cause or a group based on our own sense of, or our need for belonging, and in being loyal to those external things, people, we are not loyal to ourselves, right? So it really, there's not a lot of I'm loyal to external and myself. We seem to, there's so much pressure to be loyal to an external cause or group. Pixie, what about you?
I think it's really good point. You got to be careful where you're spending your time and energy, what you think about, what you speak about, what you do, and and if that energy, that those thoughts, those words, those actions are overzealous in their direction, then something is given up, and usually it is yourself. So, you know, with back to the kind of the codependency cause, you know, we're out there and we get a lot of self-worth, affirmation, acceptance, appreciation from fixing and enabling and controlling and caretaking, and every bit of us is outward, and so we don't spend any energy time focusing on caretaking, caring, and loving ourselves. And so what happens is we don't protect ourselves, we don't protect our needs, we don't protect our desires, and we end up abandoning ourselves. So we end up not being loyal to ourselves. And then what with loyalty, which is for me one-on-one correlation, is we stop trusting ourselves. So that's what happens when, whether our time and energy are going to others to caretake, or if they're going to causes to, you know, stand for something, you end up dividing. You end up dividing yourself from others. You end up dividing causes, you know, people on different side of causes. You just end up with division.
Yeah, right. So I feel like it's an interesting, because we always come back to, you know, the solution is the inner work. That's what we're here to talk about, right? The beautiful work, the inner work. And so this idea of, you know, coming back to self-reflection, right? And what are your inner needs, or what are your inner desires? And I think, you know, the word that keeps popping up as I was listening to both of you when you were talking about this was this: what are your what's your deepest value system, right? And knowing yourself at that really, really deep level, so that if you're being loyal to something, that you're not disregarding, right, some really important values that you hold, and ignoring that aspect of your life or that part of yourself. Yeah.
Well, you know, and I piggyback on that, Laurel. It's not only your values and belief system and getting aligned with that, it's also getting aligned with your fears. And I'll just give you, I'll give you two examples to try to show you what I mean. I stayed in a marriage for 26 years. And let me tell you, I was held up as, oh, you're so wonderful, you're honoring the marriage contract, society wants you to stay married. Everybody thinks that the longer you're in a marriage, the somehow the better it is. And you know, there's a lot of pressure from a lot of ways to stay in a marriage. But the reason I stayed in the marriage was just my absolute pure fear of being alone. It's just a big, deep fear of abandonment, rejection, and actually the fear of aloneness. And so, you know, I was loyal to, at all costs, to, you know, a fault, because I was so afraid. And it's just a deep fear that I think many of us actually carry. Another place I remained just so loyal. And the only reason I'm mentioning these is because they happen to be decades. I stayed, I stayed loyal in a career for 33 years. And so what was my intention in that? You know, was it because I was passionate and incredibly driven behind the mission of this organization? No, that's not where my loyalty came from. My loyalty came because one, I got incredible kudos, incredible rewards, incredible outward external affirmation, which fed my insecurities and inner need for something, right? Love. But the big thing, Laurel, is when I look back on the loyalty is I was afraid of not having enough money. I had fears, deep fears on finances and literally surviving, making it, the basic fear of, am I going to be able to do this? So I remained super, super loyal. So yeah, I think aligning your values, but also getting in touch with your fears and your intentions behind why you're so persistently loyal.
Wow, I love it. I'll talk about getting right into the heart of the matter. I mean, Pixie was like, I felt like you picked up like a knife and like stabbed right into right in the middle, right there. It's about fear. Right? Like
well,
look at your fear.
Hey, come on,
I
you're
love that. Thank you for digging right in there. Because I do think that, look, if we're going to really look in the mirror, right, and do the inner work, and be able to get beyond where we want to be able to live into the beauty of our life and who we really are, right? That's where we have to go, like to those big fears, right?
Yeah, you have to deep dive and really understand what your intention is. It's hard to do when the dive is, you know, really hard to do a really deep dive, but it's a good thing to have as a goal.
Yeah. Laurel, can you relate to that fear part when
well,
talking about that?
Not necessarily the fear. I can say I can relate to the you know, being loyal in a career when maybe it wasn't serving me well, or being, I mean, I have the same, loyal in my career, loyal in my first marriage. I'm loyal in my second marriage, but I'm not there out of loyalty. How's that? But for me, often it was not knowing who I was outside of that role, right? So in my first marriage, like the commitment I made and the being loyal to the institution of marriage, no matter what it took, right? Sacrificing my own needs, abandoning myself because I was loyal to my marriage and my family. You know, I did eventually get to a point where I needed to reestablish, right, to claim back my self-esteem, my self-confidence, and let go of the loyalty. In my career, it was completely, you know, the external praise, the recognition. I was good at what I did. And for me, I couldn't envision, I had no idea who I was outside of that career, without my title, without my salary. And I had the same, you know, kind of awakening, I'll call it. It was in prior podcasts, you may have heard, I had a tumor in 2017. And it was during this period of it being undiagnosed, not knowing, we thought it was cancer. It wasn't, thank God. But in that period of time, I will never forget the day that I was standing in front of the ocean with a coworker saying, under the guise of loyalty, I have given everything, my energy, my time, to my career. And that, for me, it took that. I still didn't have the vision of who I was, but I knew that I didn't want to be looking at a potential illness, a life-taking illness and having spent my whole loyalty, you know, to someone other than myself. So for me, it was really, the role I took on, which I think was fed from external validation. I was always known as a loyal, all of the things, friend, partner, employee. And there comes a time, whether it's just through your self-awareness and the hard work that you've done, Pixie, or a life-changing event that just makes you realize this, who am I being loyal to and why?
Laurel, I love that. And I can relate to some of that too, because it is kind of like reinventing yourself. And now I find great joy and creativity and thinking, I get to reinvent myself day to day. I do think a key point here is, we kind of almost get off on, wow, Pixie's so loyal. And by the way, I have to tell you, if you asked my close friends, 5 of my traits, I can guarantee you they're on the say, loyal. Okay. Now, I'm not actually saying that because I think it's, something to be that proud of. I will say that codependence, especially, although I think this happens to be a trait among loyal people, you can end up pledging loyalty without discrimination. And I think that's really important point that, we almost thrive on this, wow, I'm loyal. So we just give this loyalty away, carte blanche. So then what happens, right? Our energy is out because we're not discriminating. We're just taking on this persona of, wow, I'm loyal, so I'm going to do it just everywhere without discrimination. What I've learned now is I love my energy. I love my time. It's my most precious resource. So I'm choosing where my loyalty is going. It's a big investment for me now. That took 60 years. So it's not like I was born this way. I definitely did not discriminate at all. I prided myself on being loyal.
Yeah, and it's a sense of pride because we live in a world where we are told it is admirable to be loyal, right? And so, but I'm so glad you brought that up about, now you're choosing where your time goes and who you're loyal to or what you're loyal to. And I think for our listeners, I would suggest that the choice is yours to make, and the evaluation really needs to be closely tied to your values and your own boundaries, right? Like not knowing what your own values are, it's easy to fall into being loyal in a role that really doesn't serve you well or is not aligned with what your true purpose is, right? So that values exercise and knowing what you value and being loyal maybe to your own values really would be a good help. I mean, big help.
Yeah. It's interesting as I was listening to you both and thinking about my own, I think, relationship with loyalty and then my family history. I feel like that is one of the places where probably as codependent as I was, there wasn't the loyalty word was not like a buzzword, and it wasn't like a place where I did get into a lot of problems. I think because I saw my parents, number one, right? I was able to choose my own spiritual path, right? I wasn't brought up in a religion, so there was no loyalty to a specific religion. My father's family was Finnish, and when they came here, it was really like, we want to blend in, we want to fit in. You're not speaking Finnish at home. We're not doing Finnish customs. You're an American now. Like, I'm fitting in here now, but not in a way of I'm an American and I'm waving the flag. It was more just like, we live in this country. This is where we are. This is who we are now. We're part of this organization. And it was kind of like, there was no like, there was a real sense of independence to both my parents and the way they lived their lives. There was not a lot of big loyalty or blind or any blind loyalty, like my parents, as much as they called themselves Democrats, I never really thought of them that way. Or maybe my mom more than my dad, but I thought of them as independents. It was like they were looking at whatever the candidate was and thinking, do I like them or don't I like them? Not like, oh, I'm a Democrat, so I look at the Democrat candidate and that's it. It was this sense of I'm beyond those labels, and I can see myself as able to more fluidly look at life. And I think I got that from my parents. Like, as I'm listening, I'm thinking, I don't feel like loyalty has like been a big thing or theme, even a theme in my life at all, period. Right? I feel very committed to my family, but not like loyal. Like I wouldn't use that word. And you both know me now really well. I mean, I think you do. I feel very close to both of you. So I feel like, would you use that word loyal with me?
That's a hard question, Laurel, because
I know, right?
because
It's not a word that I associate with myself. I don't know. I don't.
I definitely think that you are loyal to your life purpose and meaning. Would I choose loyal? I am today because that's what we're talking about. I mean, and it fits.
Yeah.
There's probably a better word.
And what comes to mind for me is that, often the term loyal friend, right? It's the other word that I would use instead of loyal, because what we're talking about is when loyalty becomes a problem. We can be loyal and it's not a problem. Like I could say, oh, my friend Laurel is just such a wonderful, committed, a woman that's committed to whatever you're committed to, your family, the world, our friendship, right? That isn't a problem when we're committed to something. I think for me growing up, now keep in mind, you've heard, I went to Catholic school for 16 years. Not that my parents went to Catholic church, but I had all of the Catholic sacraments. We were Catholic. There's a lot of loyalty in Catholicism.
Yeah, right.
My parents grew up in northern Vermont. There was a lot of loyalty in my family, right? Where we were expected to be loyal to our siblings no matter what, right? That loyalty, the loyalty and the expectation into the institution of marriage, that loyalty I took very seriously, right? So I do think hearing how, your parents raised you, I'll just add one more thing. When I was 20 years old and was going to vote in the New Hampshire primary, first in the nation primary, my parents refused to drive with me because I was not voting the same party ticket that they were.
Wow.
They were loyal, right? And so, growing up in a structure that requires loyalty without free thinking is a really difficult place to be. Because if you are able to make your own decisions and act differently, you're risking, back to Pixie's, the fear, you're risking the judgment and maybe even the abandonment or dismissal in that group, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think Laurel's got a really good point. But I want to come back. I want to come back to your question, Laurel. Maybe we didn't talk enough about what loyal means to us, because when I think about loyal, I do think you are an incredibly loyal person. Loyal for me is trustworthy, okay, steady, reliable, has my back, standing in my corner, unconditional kind of accepting, open love, present, willing to serve, of course, with boundaries, protective. I don't know. I would say that you do embody, what I would incorporate as the components of loyal. And I do think we have been harboring on where it's gone bad, and maybe throwing in the other point I wanted to follow up on, because I really do think that this is a really, really key point. So I think that the bottom line mantra in my life now is you can never bring everyone with you on your journey. They're not necessarily with you on the same emotional and mental and even spiritual awareness level. So I don't care how loyal you are. You're never disloyal by allowing yourself to move forward and not bringing them along. It's okay to move on. And that means from friendships, from a marriage, from anything that holds you back from your growth and evolution. And sometimes we just need to give ourselves permission to grow and change and move on. It's not disloyal.
And, you know, as you're saying that, amen is right, that, you know, all of the attributes that you described Laurel as, right, trustworthy and reliable, and all of the words you used, you know, when I think about this message of it is okay to move on, because moving on doesn't mean that you are any less loyal.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't mean you are less trustworthy or reliable or any of those words. Right?
No.
Right.
That's not what it means.
So the only thing that matters, right? The only thing that matters is to remain loyal to your heart and your soul and your inner power, wherever that comes from. When you do that, if that loyalty is sacred, then all the other will kind of come in and out as it should as you grow.
You know,
yeah, and I think that Laurel, hold your thought, because I don't want to lose you, because I feel like we both got by what she just said. But I felt like, you know, what I really heard was, if you remain loyal to your growth and your evolution, and you stand behind that, then whatever else you stand behind has a true alignment, right? And all your power behind it as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Laurel, go. Yeah.
All I was going to say is, I think, Pixie, what we just heard from her and what our listeners heard, there's nothing else to say.
I know, right? Magic.
We are at the high point where I mean, the way that you just summed it up and brought it right back home, right, to who we are, our own journey, our soul's journey. You know, there is no room in that growth and evolution of ourself to even think for a moment that dedicating our loyalty to that is selfish.
No, and we you know, we carry on friends and we stay in relationships because sometimes we don't want to be called disloyal. And I would just say to listeners out there, move on, sister. If you have to move on and it's right for your growth and change, don't think that your growth and change applies to anybody else. Don't assume that they want to do the work. Don't assume that they want to heal. Don't assume that they're even walking in the same direction. It's okay. You can love them, hold them in the light, but move on. And you're not disloyal.
Yeah, right. That doesn't necessarily define you. So we have, I feel like if for our listeners, I just want to recap for our listeners, I feel like within this podcast, there's been really wonderful, I think, suggestions around how to start to investigate your own experience of loyalty and your own understanding and exploration of it. And it's, you know, a couple of things that pop up right away is looking at your value system. Another thing is to look at your circle of people and how your values fit with their values. The other one was, we were talking about growing up, right? We were all using different examples of growing up and how that impacted how we saw loyalty, what our experience of it and our understanding of it was. So for your own self, to go back and look at family of origin or primary relationships that you're in and how loyalty is defined in those spaces and how that's impacted how you feel, and how you show up in all your relationships. I feel like there's a lot of meat in here for your own inner work, don't you?
Yeah, I
ladies?
do. And I think if I
Yeah.
could add something, it would be, if you find yourself in a position where you are remaining, staying in a job, in a relationship, in a friendship, in a volunteer, obligation that you once made, like asking yourself the question, is my decision to stay love-based or fear-based, right? And really honing out, like, what is it that's keeping you in that place?
Yeah, I would say for sure, what are the intentions behind it? Sometimes it's not easy to figure out what those intentions are, especially if those intentions are based on fear, deep, raw childhood fear. But what I would recommend regarding questions is just the very first simple question is, where do I spend my time and energy? In a sense of, that's going to help you kind of figure out who you're being really loyal to. And then what you all said, what's it based on? Is it based on joy? Is it based on values? Is it based on fear? Is it based on meaning? Are you being mindfully intentional? And then I would actually put this one out too. What are you giving up in your loyalty? Is there anything that are you giving up any personal needs, desires, preferences? And how does that weigh in to your loyalty? And then I would come back to what my point earlier was, is, am I loyal because I'm not discriminating, or am I actually thinking about where my time and energy is going?
Yeah. And that really comes back to self-trust and honesty with yourself, like real deep, what I call brutal honesty, like really digging in there and going, why am I really doing this? What am I really, what is my real thing going on here? Yeah. Oh, ladies, thank you so much. Laurel, Pixie, I love having you with us today as always. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks
you
for being with us, listeners. We would love to know how you feel about loyalty. Feel free to leave us a comment. Feel free to share the podcast, and we'll be back real soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, ladies. Bye, listeners.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.